What's up guys, welcome back to Outdoor Tactics. My name is Robert, and today we're going to be doing a video on the initial overview and impressions of my brand new Christensen Arms Mesa in 6.5 PRC. So recently my father and I decided to jump into the world of premium quote-unquote hunting rifles. We landed on the Christensen Mesa and we each got a matching set of them. He elected to get his in 7mm 08 Remington, which is a great all-around hunting round, and I got mine in 6.5 PRC. These were not given to us. Christensen doesn't know I'm making this video. We have no dog in the fight in whether or not these rifles are coming out of the box high quality and highly functional or not. This is just going to be straight up exactly what we have experienced since buying them. So with disclosures out of the way, let's get into the rest of the video. My father and I have pretty extensive experience on bolt action rifles in general. Anything from your off-the-shelf Ruger American to, you know, almost collector level of condition and quality of older rifles like the old school Remington 700s, Model 70s, things like that. So we're coming at this from a level of experience of, you know, your everyday deer hunter and hobbyist shooter. None of us do this professionally, but I'm assuming that most of you watching this do not either. So it can be a bit of a better metric for you guys thinking about picking one of these up. So without further ado, let's get into the features that the Mesa brings to the table. So as you can see, I've sort of built out my Mesa in an 80% hunting, 20% long-range target shooting setup. I do have a Leupold 4.5 to 14 VX3 on top of this, and with the CDS zero locking dial, which is going to be a great all-around hunting scope, but can sort of extend my effective range on a long-range target range as well. But other than that, I've kept it pretty streamlined, pretty simple, and snag-proof. All I've done really is throw a set of rings and a scope on top of this rifle. Other than that, it is right out of the box. So let's talk about the Mesa in general. It is essentially a Remington 700 clone. I wish that Remington was still pushing out the same level of quality in their 700s as they used to, but the newer ones just aren't really up to snuff with what the old school ones used to be like as far as fit and finish goes. The Mesa, however, brings what seems like cutting edge tolerances to a time-tested and world-renowned Remington 700 design, which is great to see. All of your aftermarket parts are going to fit this, all of your scope bases, whatever accessories you want to throw onto this rifle in a Remington 700 pattern are going to work for you. So that's really convenient for people looking to tinker and change out parts and pieces here and there. So we're going to get into every single component of this rifle that makes it what it is, starting from muzzle to buttstock. But just for now, so that we all are on the same page, this rifle weighs about 8 pounds as it sits right now, fully loaded. It comes with a sub-MOA guarantee, more on that later, and costs us about $1,300 after tax. So not a cheap rifle by any means, definitely not an entry-level rifle by any means either, but is it worth the money? Let's find out. So let's start right up front at the muzzle. As you can see, this does come stock with a factory installed muzzle device. Something to note is that this does not come torqued down from the factory, at least it didn't on either of our models. You are going to want to take some blue Loctite and some sort of a hex key or whatever and push it through one of those ports and torque this down to your desired foot-pounds of torque. Just follow standard muzzle device torque for this one as well, it's going to work just fine. The muzzle device itself does a fine job at mitigating recoil. It is a radial compensator, which means it's got ports all the way around and evenly distributed. This is going to kick up a little bit of dust if you're shooting from the prone, and it's not going to reduce recoil quite as much as a 3 or 4 point horizontal break, but it's also not quite as obnoxious. It's not torture to shoot next to this rifle as it goes off. It's not quite as loud as it would be if it had a 3 or 4 point muzzle brake. So I don't disagree with what they went with here, although if it was a break that I could time or did not have ports on the bottom to kick up that dust, I think I would prefer it. But it is really convenient to not have to worry about timing. You can just thread this on and go about your day if you want. It is threaded 1/2 by 28. If you are looking to attach a suppressor or any QD muzzle devices, you can absolutely go ahead and do so. I have elected not to suppress this rifle. It is 24 inches out of the box, and with my suppressor, that's going to bring the total length up to about 30 inches. And that becomes a bit of a musket to carry through any sort of brushy or timber country. So for right now, I will not be suppressing this rifle. However, I have other rifles for that we'll get to in future videos. So as I mentioned, this is a 24-inch barrel. You'll see that the profile is fairly slim for a 6.5 PRC. The barrel profile is even slimmer for the 7mm 08, which makes sense. It's a more mild cartridge. You don't need nearly as much steel in the barrel to contain that. This lightens up the overall package, as you can see. And with that 24-inch barrel, it really lets that 6.5 PRC cartridge breathe and bring its full potential to the shooter, which is why I elected to go with it. Most of your box posted velocities are going to be out of 24-inch barrels for rifles like that. So being able to just follow box posted velocities to rough in my dope chart is good to go in my opinion, so I went with the 24-inch barrel. You'll also notice the coating on the barrel. It is a tungsten gray Cerakote. I really like Cerakote for two reasons. One, it looks really cool, and on this actual example here, the Cerakote job is very even and clean. Secondarily, it's going to fight off corrosion in the long run, so if you bring this out into a rainstorm, snowstorm, or just condensation from moving it in and out of hot or cold environments, all things that we will see in the field, it's going to increase the longevity of this rifle in your collection as you own it. So Cerakote is hands down just a net positive in my opinion, and I love to see it coming out on factory rifles. The barrel is also advertised as free floating. We'll go ahead and test that now. And as you can see, fairly thick paper, does slide right back with hardly any resistance whatsoever, so the free float is good. They also advertise a match chamber in this barrel, which I do believe is the case. When Hornady came out with the 6.5 PRC and the PRC cartridges in general, they were held to very low tolerances in the chamber design that manufacturers would come out and chamber the barrels in. So I believe that most 6.5 PRC barrels are going to be match spec to begin with. However, it does seem to be the case on this rifle that it is a match spec chamber. So that's the barrel in a nutshell. 24 inches, fully Cerakoted, comes with a comp, and seems to be match accurate out of the box. Let's move into the action. So moving into the action back here, you will see matching Cerakote, which I love for all the same reasons I love it on the barrel. This is a short action model, and as I said, the action is mostly cloned off of a Remington 700. They advertise an oversized ejection port on this model as well. I guess so. Versus a standard Remington 700, I would have to put them side by side to see if I actually think that's an oversized ejection port. It's plenty big enough to eject brass as it is, but it doesn't look obnoxiously oversized to me, but I guess it is. The bolt seems to be micro slick Cerakoted black, stainless steel underneath, and is fluted from the factory, which is sick. Aside from looking cool, fluting is actually going to give dirt and grime and possibly ice a place to go if it does form or end up on your bolt for any reason, and it won't jam up your action as bad. That's a bit of a stretch, I think. Sincerely, fluting is there just to look cool and for a little bit of weight savings, but it sincerely is not much. You can see in this clip here, just from my initial break-in, which has been about 40 rounds of 6.5 PRC, we are starting to get some wear on the Cerakote job on the bolt, which is totally fine. I think it's just because this rifle has tight tolerances that we are getting some metal on metal contact there, as you know, as we are running that bolt. But as we break this rifle in, I believe that wear will slow down and stop altogether. One thing I'm not a gigantic fan of right out of the box is that this bolt throw is rather high. You can see here whenever I throw my bolt, and this scope is on 14x, granted there's a throw lever here, but we are pretty close as far as bolt to scope contact. So just make sure that whatever rings you decide to use, you're still going to be able to clear your bolt once your scope is mounted. This rifle feeds from a detachable, This rifle does not feed from detachable, This rifle does not feed from detachable box magazine. It is actually a drop away floor plate or bottom metal, and it holds 4 down in the magazine, and then you can sneak 1 into the chamber to get 5 total. Typically, I'm probably just going to load 4 and call it good, but if for whatever reason you want to load 5, you can definitely do that. I think the magazine capacity is variable depending on what chambering you get, so just check their website for that information. I like that they went with a hinged floor plate here. It's extremely low profile and snag proof. You can definitely get a flush fit magazine on something like a Ruger American, whatever takes those rotary plastic mags. But they're a little bit dinky. I'm not the biggest fan of those. I feel like if I want a flush fit mag, I would rather just have bottom metal instead of a rotary plastic magazine. Although reliability has been pretty good with all of those that I've shot in Ruger Americans. So I can't complain about those too much, but as I said, I do like that they went with bottom metal here. You can just hit this button right here in front of your trigger to drop that out. And then that would eject all of your cartridges at once if you need to at the end of a day of hunting. All right, let's move into the trigger. The trigger matters so much to me on a precision rifle. It is my contact point with the gun. It is vitally important that it comes with a high quality trigger if we're gonna be making long range shots on the range or on game. This one is fantastic. It's made by Trigger Tech. They partnered up with them to bring these rifles to market, and it's set at around 3 pounds from the factory. It's a single stage trigger, breaks extremely clean. This rifle is clear. There is no take up whatsoever. It's just a hard wall, and then it breaks. So the trigger's phenomenal. If you are coming from 2-stage triggers, which is typically in my history of shooting, I've shot mostly 2-stage triggers, the transition into single stage might jar you a little bit. It's not a huge deal. When you're looking to take up slack to prep you for that shot, I understand there are some benefits to that, but I actually kind of enjoy knowing that there is no take up. There's no step one to my trigger pull. It's just decide to start putting pressure on the trigger and squeeze until it breaks. In love with that Trigger Tech trigger coming on the Mesa. One thing I'm not super excited about is that if you go in there and try to adjust the trigger pull on your own, they actually have tamper marks inside of the action, and that will void your warranty. I understand that Christensen doesn't want people going into the guts of their rifles and breaking them and then calling up Christensen and saying that they want a refund or they want the rifle fixed. But if you're going to include an adjustable trigger in the gun, I don't really want to have to send it back to you to get it worked on. That's just my opinion. I understand why they did it, and lucky for me, I'm super happy with a 3-pound pull. I think in a hunting situation where I might be wearing gloves, like I should be right now, it's freezing outside, 3 pounds is a great number to land on. It's not so light that it's going to go off before I'm ready, and it's not so heavy that it's going to impede me in a clean trigger pull. Now let's move into the stock. So the stock on the Christensen Mesa is a composite material, but it is reinforced with carbon fiber. So it's not a full carbon fiber stock, it's a combination of carbon fiber and polymer. It feels like much higher quality than the other composite stocks that I've run in the past, which for the price, it should be. It seems fairly lightweight, it seems rigid enough to run a bipod on. I actually did most of my initial shooting off of a bipod, and I did not see any impact shift or opening or closing of group size when taking the bipod off and shooting it off of bags. So it does seem to be rigid enough to take front-loading a bipod onto that gun and taking your shots off of a rear bag if you have to. Typically I love shooting in the prone, so I like to shoot off a bipod whenever possible. So that's a great feature for me. You'll find 2 standard sling swivels on this stock as well in the normal locations, you know, front and rear to run any standard sling on the market. I had a sling on this rifle and it just broke, so shout out to that company for selling me slings that break, but whatever. You can attach slings to them, bipods and slings, do whatever you want. I'm not your dad. Moving back here on the stock, we will get to the actual recoil pad. From the factory, it's perfectly fine. I probably won't switch it out. You might start shooting this rifle and realize maybe you want a limb saver, which I think are fairly high quality recoil pads, but I do like that it's fairly flat on the actual contact surface that comes into your shoulder. I don't like rearward swept recoil pads at all. The color on the stock is something I've heard people complain about on forums. I did a lot of research on these rifles before making this purchase. I don't know, it looks fine to me. I like the way it looks. I think it's just going to be a personal preference thing, and if you don't like it, you can just take a rattle can to it, or you can buy a replacement stock. If you don't love this color palette, they also make a Cerakote burnt bronze barreled action with a green stock. Which, you know, I think I like the look of this one better. It's a bit cleaner, a little more modern looking. At the end of the day, it's personal preference. You got to make sure that you think your rifle looks cool, because if you don't think that your rifle looks cool, what are we doing here? So to round this video out, we're going to get into my personal shooting experience. The one thing that people ask when they see a price tag like this, over that $1,000 mark, is does it shoot well? And from my experiences, it shoots. It shoots very nicely. I'm getting about half MOA groups at 100 yards with match ammo, and that's just shooting off of a bipod with a fairly improvised rear bag. It was actually a tool kit that I had in my range duffel. So it was not a regular shape. It had a bunch of hard angled geometry in there, and I was trying to stuff it up under the stock to be a good rear bag. And I'm still printing 1/2-inch groups under those conditions. And then when I shoot Hornady Precision Hunter, I am opening up to about 0.6 to 0.75 inch groups, which are still phenomenally accurate for me. I think that this gun is going to be more accurate than I can be as a shooter, and I typically don't shoot off of a lead sled or off of a bench very often, but I did do a little bit of bench testing and got the same results. I tend to subscribe to the train how you fight mentality, so I am shooting mostly out of the prone or off of rest from the standing position when shooting this rifle so far. Emphasis on the prone because it is a longer range precision rifle in my eyes. However, in bench testing, it was phenomenally accurate as well. After a short break-in of about 20 rounds, it was printing those very, very small groups, and I'll roll in some footage of that right now. I think that being able to buy a rifle off the shelf like this and then go buy ammo off the shelf like the Precision Hunter line or the Norma Match line really makes a statement about the day and age we live in as far as firearms technology goes. Being able to go down to your local store and just pick up a rifle that can shoot like this 10, 20 years ago was simply not the case without spending a whole lot more money. Granted, you can get $400, $500 rifles that are shooting sub-MOA these days, but I think that the longevity that this is going to give you as a whole package, especially topping it with a rugged scope like a Leupold, is definitely going to make it worth its money in the long run. Let's talk about recoil impulse a little bit. 6.5 PRC is a Magnum cartridge, right? It is a short action Magnum cartridge, meaning that it fits in standard short action rifles, but it does have a Magnum bolt face. It's a lot of powder, pushing a not super heavy bullet, anywhere from 130 up to about mid 150s on the super high end from Berger and stuff like that. The recoil impulse is moderate. I would say it's similar to shooting, I would even go as far to say it's mild. It's similar to shooting a 6.5 Creedmoor with a crowned barrel and maybe a bit shorter barrel. It's a little bit barky, but the impulse is very quick. It doesn't shove you very far backwards. It's just kind of a swift recoil impulse, and then I am able to get right back on target. When you go out into extended ranges in hunting situations, having a low recoil rifle is going to help you spot hits, spot game after the hit to see how they're acting or where they went. And it has a whole lot of benefit in the way that you are able to just train more and train more comfortably over a longer amount of time and a longer round count to get better and more familiarized with your rifle. So I am a bit recoil sensitive in the way that I want to shoot for longer periods of time and get more reps in, and I want to be able to spot my animal after the shot more easily. So I tend to stick to lower recoiling rifles, and this is no exception. I think that this recoils very mildly. I would put just about any shooter behind this rifle and tell them, have fun. It's not going to kick the crap out of you. It's very comfortable to shoot. Let's get into my main con with the rifle. I don't think the price is a problem. I don't think that anything about the rifle as far as features go is a problem, but there is one part of the shooting experience that I don't love, and that is a fairly sticky bolt lift. This is not a bolt lift that is sticky because of high pressure ammunition or anything like that. It's just whenever you go to recock that bolt after your fire pin is dropped, even with an empty chamber, we'll do it here for demonstration. The bolt lift is fairly stiff to the point where I could pick the gun up by the bolt. So let's go ahead and just drop that firing pin real quick. And now let's go to recock it, and it just kind of stops right there. And I can pick up the entire rifle. If I stabilize the front of the gun, I can cock that bolt no problem and run the action. I wish that that wasn't so sticky and that I could just reach up and run that bolt. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if it's a tolerance on the lugs or something similar. I'm not sure if it just needs broken in over a higher round count, because as of right now, we're at about 40-50 rounds of ammunition through this. So this is an initial impression / overview video, not a long-term review. That will be coming in the future. If you're interested in seeing that video in the future, please subscribe to the channel so you can get notified when it drops. However, I'm hoping to see that sort of clear up as we go through the future life cycle of this gun. As you can see, once it's been recocked, this bolt lift is very gentle and no issue. But once you drop that firing pin, I can suspend the whole weight of the rifle by that. So I'm kind of wondering if this is a blemish from the factory or if it's just the way that this action runs. I can't tell as of right now. I need more rounds through it to get a definitive answer. But for right now, that is the biggest con that I'm noticing, which really isn't that big of a deal. So what's next on the docket for this rifle? Well, I'm glad you asked. You didn't ask, but I did. I'm going to be bringing this out to a long range near me in central Ohio and really stretching its legs and seeing how far I can take this rifle in optic combo. This scope will be getting its own video review as I take this rifle out to longer range and see how this does. Hello, bird. So once I take it out to an extended range and build a dope chart and really run it through its paces and see where this thing starts to fall apart, if it does start to fall apart in performance, that's next on the docket. After that, we will be taking it to West Virginia for rifle hunting season in November. And then hopefully at some point in my future, I will be taking this out west for pronghorn, antelope, elk with the right bullet composition. Pretty much anything elk and down in North America, I'm going to take this rifle for. So that's going to round out my initial impressions and overview of the Christensen Arms Mesa in 6.5 PRC. Hopefully this video was interesting to you. Hopefully it was helpful to you. If it was, there is a subscribe button down below, as well as a like button and a comment section. That is for discussion. If you own this rifle, I would love to hear about your experiences with it. If I missed anything, please let me know down below and I can get answers to your questions down there. Other than that, guys, that's pretty much all I've got for you. If you're interested in seeing me take this rifle out into the field in November, again, stay tuned to the channel. We will be bringing those videos to you in the future. So we'll see you guys on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.